Original.
Good beings. It's like Christmas morning.
You found Joffrey's Whitewater, a celebration of whitewater kayaking and the legends who've shaped the sport. Come gather around the campfire. There's stories to be told. Joffrey's Whitewater is supported by Kayak Session magazine. You may think you get the full picture scrolling social media and seeing these clips, but there's just something about holding a magazine, and one that's as high as quality as Kayak Session. It just really takes you to a deeper level, deeper understanding of these trips and the people behind them going out there really at the cutting edge of the sport. So pick up a copy if you get a chance. We're live. All right, really thrilled to have with me today Shannon Carroll. A woman whose name has come up as an inspiration to many male paddlers I've interviewed, just casually mentioning it along other men they were inspired by. A woman who is, really top end kayaker in both freestyle and creek boating, especially really taking creek racing and creek boating to a really high level, winning things like the homestake wreaths at the mountain games. I think the same year Pat Keller won it at maybe like 16 years old. But Shannon Carroll really was a leading force in the kind of so-called golden era of whitewater kayaking. And then kind of the whole whitewater world was sort of shocked one day by a big waterfall being ran. And in hindsight, it really sort of kicked off this sort of race for waterfall world records and things that lasted over a decade. And I don't even know how news spread back then, pre-internet and stuff. But the word got out really fast about this waterfall, and it was a world record waterfall. And it was a woman who had broken the world record of anybody in whitewater kayaking. So really great to have you, Shannon. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into kayaking?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I grew up in West Virginia on the New and the Gauley Rivers. My dad had a camping program for inner city kids, so they would come for a whole week. So around 12 or so, I started, probably 10 actually, started being there throughout the whole summer. I got a kayak when I was 11 because I've been in the whitewater since I was 2, and it looked more fun, more maneuverable. So yeah, kind of cut my teeth there in West Virginia.
And then you kind of developed a crew when maybe you got into your teens and started getting away from your parents?
Yeah, definitely. I saw a lot of kayakers out on the New. Most were like video kayakers, and I began video kayaking myself. And so I guess really BJ Johnson would have been the first, person I really looked up to. I mean, not the first person, Colleen Laffey, okay, first female kayaker. But anyway, BJ was like kind of on the scene, doing some videoing, running some creeks and stuff, which I, wasn't even really aware of at the time. And then Katie Johnson, his partner, they kind of started forming, a team of like, they began paddling for Piranha and were videoing and going to competitions and stuff. So in 96, when I graduated high school, I went up to Canada for on the Ottawa for I think the World Championship, I believe. I don't know, it was like the big first big rodeo I had been to. And that's when I was really exposed to like the whole scene, like Chuck Kern and, on and on as far as people. But I remember like on an off day from rodeo kayaking, we went to the Chutes de Collonges, and that's a big, waterfall in Canada, and both BJ and Chuck fired it off, and I was like sitting in the eddy at the bottom. It must have been something you could like paddle up to, or from the bottom, because it wasn't like we like ran the whole river. But anyway, and I was just like in awe. And then even right after that, like the next day, we went over to some waterfall, and honestly, I don't remember the name of that one, but Colby Mackley was there, Elvis, and a couple guys. Anyway, they were like sending it, and we were just like, like at this like waterfall overlook for hikers or whatever, that are dispersed along, many of the whitewater rivers that we know of. So like, right, it's like this area you could just hike up to and like, oh, isn't that a beautiful waterfall? And just like these guys are just, sent it, and like anyway, now I'm going to get distracted into details, but yeah, just watching that unfold. Um, Chuck sent that as well, and just being like, whoa, this is like, you know, outside of my mind of what I thought probably really was possible of kayaking, just being on the new and the Golly kind of like, play boating, open water stuff into like creek boating. So yeah, that was in 96. And then kind of started traveling with those guys that next summer out west, doing some rodeos and some waterfalls. So it was always like on this circuit, right? Like to all the different events with like, across Colorado and then during the weekdays we would go creek boating. So it kind of seemed like, that was like more of our passion, whereas like the freestyle sort of fueled the purpose for the industry sponsors. Yeah.
Yeah, that when BJ and Katie and Clay made that movie Falling Down, that was really a landmark film. I feel like that one really kind of was a revolutionary thing for Southeastern kayaking.
Right. And that was like along the same time as the West Coasters, like Driftwood Productions and all, they were releasing some of their films as well. So I think it was probably the next summer that I actually got to travel all the way out to California, where I live now, in Truckee, so Lake Tahoe area. But this specifically, we were with the Kern brothers and like and BJ and Scott and those guys, Scott Lindgren. It was kind of like the East Coast meets West Coast, crew doing the same type of thing. And I remember actually driving over the summit. We had must have run something like Strawberry on the North Yuba or something. But anyway, we were driving over Donner Summit and I was like, oh, like this is a really cool place. And it was Johnny Kern was like, oh yeah, I live here in the winter. I ski from the top of that mountain down to that lake, which is Donner Summit to Donner Lake. I was just like, what? Like, again, like that's just coming from West Virginia, smaller mountains, smaller riverbeds and stuff. And I had done a little bit of skiing, but yeah, it just like California blew my mind. And that winter, and that would have been 99 actually, I guess. I moved out here and had a house with a couple girlfriends on Donner Lake and skied from the top of that mountain down to that lake because you could kayak year round out here. So that was the draw for me, moving across, to the West Coast. And then, yeah, that next year I ended up um, meeting up with Ben Coleman, and we kind of, started a team of, was my partner for many years, but we kayaked all over from there, just kind of still doing the circuit and doing the waterfalls and stuff like that. So, yeah, lots of great memories. I just was telling my nanny this morning we were going to have a conversation, but even before that I was like, do you smell that? That's that California smell. And I was just explaining to her like I when I was younger, being out here exposed to California summers where we really didn't have a whole lot of responsibility other than going creek boating and events on the weekends for the sponsors and whatnot. But like your mind, how your mind like triggers smells and stuff. And I just like every spring and summer here where that pine comes out, like it just like brings me back to like all of the days of just waking up on the granite in the middle of California somewhere, getting to run, the big long rivers or multi days and stuff like that. Just, I mean, it just, it really holds a special place in my heart. And yeah, I'm blessed to live here in California.
It is so special. Yeah, that smell, you're right. Especially those first rains of spring that really start to bring it out. But yeah, and those multi-day rivers where you can't, the only way to explain it is you just pull over on the side of the river and camp at this paradise spot where you're like, how can this even exist? Usually at the bottom of some gorgeous runnable waterfall. And yeah, it's just the greatest place for kayaking.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful places, but yeah, we could argue that all day, but I'm on board with that. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at like Darren McCoy had posted some footage the other day, I think of Dinky Creek and just like the sunset, just on the middle of those open granite rocks where you set up camp there. It's just, um, it doesn't get any better. Yeah.
And so was that first California trip, was that when you did the Royal Gorge?
No, that I want to say was like 2002 or 2000. Let me think. Okay, I moved out here 99. So it might have been 2002. I had, from my knowledge, it had been done one other time with Scott Lindgren when he like sent Scott's drop, back in the day. That's a really cool story about, I don't think he scouted it. He just ran right into it. But anyway, so that team had been down there. Mark Hayden had run Heath Springs too. I believe he fractured some ribs and had gotten, had to hike out there. And then that became a whole thing of like the landowners, like you can't kayak this, and then that went to court. And in California we have the high water, like you have the right to navigate the water line to the high water line. Anyway, so it was Ben Coleman, myself, and Taylor Robertson. I believe is the second descent, and Johnny Kern dropped us off at like 5 in the morning, because this again was still like wasn't cool with the landowners, to our knowledge, even though they had won that sort of battle in court. But anyway, so we put on really early, and then you don't leave a car back then. Somebody drives out, and then we kind of kayaked just around the corner, and like went back to bed, like pulled out our sleeping bags, like let's just like rest for a little bit before we get the day going, because we thought we were kind of out of the danger zone. And then like we kind of like rested for a little bit, and we were up, and then like someone's like, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, oh, we like freak out and just like stuff our sleeping bags and whatever other paraphernalia we happen to have out at the time. And we just like put on and just start booking it, like whitewater we've never seen. And the first 3 miles of the Royal Gorge is pretty technical, and so just reading and running, back in the heyday and the youth, how we did a lot of that. Taylor would send it often if he could barely see the bottom, or maybe he couldn't. But anyway, we made it down to Heath Springs 1, and this guy's like following us. Like we were like, what are these guys doing out here, that they have like someone like monitoring their property, right? But at that point, like we're in the gorge, and we weren't worried. He was kind of up high, like off this trail, like watching and taking pictures and stuff, which certainly sort of up the like anxiety level of just like pressure. But anyway, so yeah, we had Heath Springs 1, was beautiful, the big rainbow drop. And then I ran Heath Springs 2, which was, looking back, is kind of crazy because there was just three of us. And I honestly, I don't even think, maybe I waited till someone was at the bottom, because that's like a big like hike out and then portage down to the above the Crux Gorge. So like, right, we call it the like Heath 1, Heath 2, and then like the poop chute, because it's just like all of the CFS is going out these huge walls through this tiny narrow, like it's like 12 foot, but it's just like so much CFS that you just go deep anyway. And then there's a huge straightaway of flat water before it turns the corner of the Crux Gorge. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. Just looking back, it doesn't seem like the smartest idea, but I ran it successfully, and that was fortunate. No like skirt pop or anything like that. And then we ran the Crux, and we were a pretty solid team. We did a lot of like threesome kayaking, like Fantasy Falls and whatnot, all of the Dinky Creek and everything like that. So we were pretty like well-oiled machine as far as working together as a team and communicating down the river and stuff. But um, yeah, fond memories. I've been back there a few times for sure, like since then. I mean, and then even honestly, I think my last time was like 2011, maybe, with some of the Demshits crew. And it's funny because like I used to be like, well, as long as I'm in really good shape, like I would go do the Royal Gorge. But the reality with the Royal Gorge is like I really want to do that river if I'm going to run the waterfalls. Like, that's otherwise it probably wouldn't be in like my top 10 if I'm not running the waterfalls. So you kind of have to be in the right mindset for that.
Which is not easy with kayaking, to keep in that mindset to do things like the Royal Gorge.
Yeah, I mean, I like some off the couch South Yuba or something like that. That gets me going for sure. And I mean, like I said, I feel like kayaking at this point is second nature to me. Like it's ingrained in my muscles. So as long as I'm like, been skate skiing, which is I enjoy doing, or which is full body workout, or yeah, hitting the gym, which doesn't happen often. But as long as I'm in shape in the spring, I feel like I'm generally good to go for some of the like one day things. But it's just interesting. Like life has sort of taken a change. There are different priorities, and for a long time, I kind of struggled with that. Like kayaking was sort of what had defined me for so long. And even after going through nursing school, like I kind of like I became a nurse, but then went right back into like wanting to be like out on the rivers all the time. Um, you know, obviously, because our sport is addictive and it's like the most amazing thing ever. But I mean, I have kids now, and I have a 5 and 8 year old daughters, and I'm getting them into into whitewater. Um, and it's just different, having priorities of what I'm doing for my day. Like I don't have like, you know, zero responsibility anymore other than like kayaking and producing material for some of my sponsors or anything like that. So sometimes it's kind of like, it's a full day, right? To like leave and drive to the river and paddle. But yeah, I try to squeeze those in. But really, right now, I notice that I'm focusing more on like self care, which includes a lot of things as a mother, rather than just spending your whole day kayaking. But I get those in here and there, and again, I get more joy right now of just like the girls, introducing them to whitewater, which is through rafting. And it's funny, I got them a kayak. But then what I realized is a ducky would have been a better idea, or if from California, the inflatable kayak, if you will. Because if I think about it, I grew up canoeing and ducking before I got into kayaking. And it's just so much easier, right? So they have been like they can paddle, but enough about them.
I've done my share of yeah, pushing kids too hard in whitewater and scaring them of it. So your parents, they had that camp right on the river, and you were just kind of hanging out at the camp, and they had whitewater tours going.
Yeah, I mean, I was basically the camp slave, pretty cheap labor, if you will. But they would do week long. So kids would come and they would go camping, like hiking and camping, making your own food, setting up your tent, for the first 3 days. And then we would go, climbing and rappelling, right? So that gave me the introduction to like rock work, which, I've certainly been quoted before saying that like the hardest part of whitewater, of expedition kayaking, is all the work that's done outside of the riverbed, right? Or well, the river, not the riverbed, but anyway, hiking along the portaging, scouting, all of that with the rocks. So anyway, we would climb 30 footers, rappel, and then we would take them over to this 135-foot cliff to rappel. So I always had a really love of like heights and stuff like that. And then the Thursday we would go ducking. We'd take the, well, it was used to be canoeing, right? Like with like the inner tube in the middle, a two-man canoe. And there's like a couple of rapids of this class 3 where they would get wrapped every now and then. You'd have someone who would wrap their canoe. So then once the duckies came out, which is really aging me, isn't it? The duckies are a little more accessible for people that don't have any whitewater experience, and they would ducky. And then the last day they would whitewater raft the lower new section. But yeah, I remember like, having even being said that like it's harder with all the like work outside of the river, rather than paddling sometimes. Like I like that. Like I kind of always kind of like that thrill. And like I recall scouting Heath Springs too is one where you're kind of like, you have to kind of take the corner and then you're like way up above the waterfall. And you're like on this like tiny ledge, and I kind of like that thrill. I was like where you're like fixated on the waterfall, like you're looking at your line very closely. And then when you pull your vision back to like step away and, like to be present on the rock and get out of there, like that kind of like tingling a little bit of like, ooh, you're like the body sensation of like, I'm up here. So yeah, I like the thrill of that as well.
Yeah, and those special places that like that ledge, right? And I think I did come across a quote from, give a shout out to Chris Bear that got a quote from you that said, "The drive to explore my kayak comes from the fantasy of being in a place where very few have probably ever been. It's pretty thrilling to be in an untouched area when you know how busy the rat race is outside of the canyon walls." Oh, yeah, really, those places, it is. And that has nothing to do with kayaking, right? It just happens to be where you have those kind of moments where you kind of come to consciousness, right? Of, like you said, standing on that ledge above Heath, too, where it's like, whoa, look where I am.
Right, right. The kayak is the vessel, right? Just to get there. Like, and people, like some of these areas, like you can't get there without a kayak. Like, that's just reality, I guess. I mean, I suppose mountaineering or whatever, like take some ropes and stuff. But anyway, like, yeah, that's definitely like what makes it, feel very special, as a sport and something that, you dedicate your life to. Yeah. And again, that's probably why I like really kind of struggled like with my identity. I feel so fortunate, right, to like have all these magical moments in my youth of just like traveling somewhat carefree, to these places and then feeling like, okay, I remember when I became a nurse and like was driving to work one day, like I had the radio on and I was like, oh my God, I feel like such like a normal person. And it didn't feel good to me. Like I was like, I'm not special anymore or whatever. I don't know if I had that thought, but I was definitely like, well, I'm like, this is just like normal life, right? Like I wasn't 9 to 5, it's like 7 to 7. And nursing is very rewarding. So don't get me wrong. Like I felt very proud to have like a career. And that's just kind of it too. Like my transition from kayaking is like, I loved kayaking, but like I was living here in Truckee and every year I would spend about 3 months downtime before like, starting my circuit again of whatever trips that we had planned and events to go to. And I was broke every year and I made decent money at the time, like in kayaking. And certainly it was like paid for my trips and like, but it kind of all went back into kayaking. And then I kind of had the 3 months of like, all right, like, snowboarding and waiting tables here. And I was just sort of like this cycle for like at least 8 years, I would say. And I had to think to myself, well, what do I want to do? Like, I'm not going to retire from kayaking, right? Like, I'm not going to just be in my 80s and like sending these waterfalls. I was trying to be realistic. Okay. And so that, yeah, that's kind of when I made the transition in my mind of like, okay, like um, I should, think about what I want to do. And so nursing worked out really well for me. But even then, I was like watching like Dan Gavir, like getting into stand-up paddleboarding, right? And that's a much more accessible sport, easy to sell to, the layman, um, because it's not so dangerous and it's you can do it in lakes and whatnot. And even then, I feel like I feel like I had like regret a little bit, like just kind of like, oh, like I should have done this or I, should have done that. Or my dad used to always be like, you should be a public speaker and like talk. But the problem is I never like had a river log and like wrote stories about like, I mean, I have stories in my head, but like I really wish I had like more documented better like the places I had been and the things I was doing. Because you do, you think like you've got like your motivational speakers and stuff like that. But anyway, we can get into why like nursing was just a right fit for me. And I feel that way because it gives you lots of freedom to do things that you love, freedom of flexibility of schedule, so when I became an, I still was like kayaking and went out to Colorado. And even to this day, it's so funny, right? Because you've seen that they have the boater cross in the Olympics.
Uh-huh.
Did you see that, Nick? Right?
That was great.
Dude, I could go do that. And my girls they're like, yeah, mom, we want you to be an Olympic athlete. I was like, and it's funny. And so not only that, or I think about I saw that they posted they're having the mountain games, in Vail, and they're gonna have a boater cross and like I'm just a competitive nature. I love sports in general. I've still tried to like, stay in shape and do lots of things. And I mean, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I could totally probably show up to the mountain games and, paddle well and have fun, right? Competing. But it's just like all about what you want to put your time and energy into, right? And I would love to go and just like have that experience, but it's like I have a band now and I've got kids and we're going to Latvia for the summer where my husband's from and I would obviously need to train, if I wanted to perform well. So yeah, it's just finding the balance in your life of, what feeds your soul at the time.
Yeah, come to find out, you have to constantly reinvent yourself through life. That's for sure.
Right.
But
Which is what they don't tell you when you're young.
yeah. But then you kind of find yourself getting those same moments like you're talking about on in one of those canyons in one of those special places where it hits you like when you're just floating on the raft behind your kids, right? Or you're even just biking behind them to school. You get that same kind of like, hell yeah, this is sweet right here.
Well, it's true. Yeah, definitely like that is like what, the joy that like sharing these things with your kids is like fresh eyes, right? That's there's something to be said about that. And certainly what did we do? We did the Oahe, which is Southern Oregon river. So we did like 6 days on that in the spring. And and so I still get, obviously it's not like an adrenaline rush. by any means. But it's, again, it's just being out there in nature and like, problem solving the little things along the way and like teaching them critical thinking skills and stuff like that. So yeah, we're gonna, I think that's the only big trip, family trip we have this year, just because we do the summers is, we're going to Europe. So been wanting to do that, but we're going to do a few American river days and, yeah, just I think it's really like an important piece of who I am. And that's, why I want to share that with my kids. And I've certainly really fortunate to have Bubba Stanton in my life, and he's a good friend of mine. And he's kind of helped introduce whitewater because, okay, let's be real, like kayaking is pretty easy. And once you go family rafting, and not as easy, lots of gear. So I have a few industry friends that are helping me out by, getting me some hookups to have all the nice gear to take the kids rafting, and then like the frame and the raft and the dry bags and the, whereas it just used to be like, what is a 5-piece check, like kayak, paddle, life jacket, helmet, boat.
It's good. Yeah, I took my
That's good.
kids on a five
Yeah.
day. We just went on a 5 day San Juan trip, and I was just packing. I was like, this is ridiculous. This is totally ridiculous to put this much into a river trip.
Yeah, and then I forget, it's inevitable. I forget something. And, we went last year on, or the other year on the Idaho on the salmon, and I forgot all the costumes, which is like the best part because I'm way into costumes and dressing up with the kids for any reason. And my friends got out there and I was like, what? So that just shows you like how like I'm a little out of practice, right? Of like you got to getting the family out there. It's like, but I will say that Savannah, my youngest, she did 2 days on the Carson at 9 months. She did the South American at 14 months. So I'm actually not bragging. I'm mostly talking about how stupid I am for taking out such a young baby, but so far so good.
Yeah, so that one river up in upper state New York, that crack canyon kind of
Ooh.
thing, you got a relationship with that thing. I don't know if that's where maybe you met the currents too, but what was kind of the backstory of that
That
place?
that was High Falls Gorge, right? In upstate New York, and Willie was with us. I already knew Willie, but yeah, he was on that trip, and BJ and Katie. We had borrowed my dad's like van. It was probably his van for his camping program, for this trip we went on. Anyway, and so we went up there, and then yeah, it's like kind of hard to explain. I mean, maybe the whitewaters will understand it, but anyway, like it's kind of like the top of the waterfall, right? Like it's like this big rock bed where you can like walk out on it, right? And then it like drops in to like a multi-layer tier piece. And so yeah, I like come through. It's kind of a narrow entrance of the water where you are, and then the first move is like a booth, like maybe 10 feet, probably not even. Um, and what happened was I had a little left hand angle, and basically, right, so you're gonna boof in. There was like a kind of underwater claw, like basically the left side wall was like this claw, right? So you wanted to go here, but I kind of like tink and then backed into this like eddy that's like, you know, a third, not even a third of the way down the waterfall. So I just like disappeared. Um, and they were like, "Whoa, what happened? Where'd she go?" Like, but I think they probably figured it out quickly. I was, yeah, in this little teacup there, just like it wasn't very violent. It was just like a calm part of water. The waterfall was like, you could see the curtain going there. Um, but I definitely was like, oh, what's going on? So it really didn't take that long till suddenly like boop, a little like carabiner swings in from the waterfall curtain. Um, than my lifeline. And because I was kind of thinking, all right, well, how long am I going to stay here? And am I going to have to swim out of this? Well, that's the other thing. I can't remember why I was out of my boat, but I ended up getting out of my boat. I mean, I didn't swim into it, so it was pretty tiny. Again, I'm getting old, so these memories are a little tricky. But that what they really hated was once the carabiner came over, I hooked up my kayak so they could come out. And then they threw it back, and then I was able to climb out. But yeah, that was really weird. I didn't end up running that the next day. I was just kind of like, I'm gonna chalk it up as that's a no-go for me right now. Um, but Katie was definitely really worried about having to tell my dad. And honestly, I think it probably took them longer to get to me than I'm saying it did, because now in retrospect, I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't so bad. But it was long enough for me to sit there and like try to figure out a real plan out of there. It was like for some reason not possible for me to like get in my boat and like paddle out of it. It was like really tiny, tiny. But that was a very strange episode. Um, and yeah, Katie was worried about having to return the van without the daughter, but she didn't have to do that. So yeah, but I watched the boys run that later. It was pretty stout. And it's funny because I had a similar, I was thinking about on Upper Cherry Creek. I don't know why we're going to talk about all my bad runs, but one time on, what's it called? Double Drop. So it's kind of the same thing. Like Double Drop leads in. There's not like a ton of water up top, but then it like pours over it's like the two teacups below the main gorge. But anyway, and so this is one where it's like, yeah, you want to have a left stroke, okay? Because I landed and my nose hit the end of the other, the rock basically, and it pushed me behind the curtain. And that one it felt sketchier to me as of like my memory of it, because I stayed in my boat and I basically tried to like paddle back up into the waterfall and out the curtain, and it took me, I think, 3 tries, and you're getting tired, right? And you feel like if this last try, it's like I was really worried about that. I was like, if this last try, like I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? Be back here, and there wasn't like sometimes there's like a ledge you can get out and like sit and set up your camp or something, which I've never had to do, but there wasn't that. It was just like cold back there and a little scary. But the last one, I basically, it's like one of those things where you're like, no one is here to save you, right? Like, no, no, like really. I mean, your friends can help, and maybe there's like, but to be honest with you, that particular waterfall, like no one is set up in the middle, right? They're like at the bottom of the next part of that drop. So anyway, it just was like, that's where you go, that's where you find out who you are, right? Like, I gotta dig deep. This is all on me. I gotta be as strong as I can, even though it's like my third, because I'm gonna start losing energy for this. But I was able to paddle out of that. But yeah, it's like it's all fun and games. I remember doing the Middle Kings, and like Ben had like a bad run on a rapid, and like kind of got pinned, and like we got him out, whatever. But he was like my best friend at the time, and it was like really unsettling for my nerves, right? And we were with Scott as well, and then we camped at that spot once we got Ben out. We camped there, and I really do remember just like going to bed in my, well, it didn't even have a tent, right? Like in my sleeping bag, and just like wishing I wasn't there. I was like wishing I was a princess or someone rich, I guess. I don't know what princess, but like I imagined myself on a chase lounge reading a book. I was like, that's what I want to be doing right now. Like all this like thrill seeking adventure right now is like it had really gotten to me. I was really scared, right? And I knew I had like the hardest whitewater downstream to still paddle like for like 3 days at least. And it's just, it's hard, right? That's why I think kayaking's so good for you, because it really makes you sometimes face your fears and just deal, right? You can't, like these days, like there's always an easy out to things. And I don't want to teach my kids that either. Like, sometimes you got to put in the work, whether it's like mental work or physical work. And I remember I was the next day I was like not paddling well, and I just was totally off my game. 90% mind is, kayaking. And I like Scott had to pull me out and was just like, you need to get it together. Like, he was always really good with sharp tongue and tough love. But I mean, it was like this, something had to be said. Like I was like not paddling well, and he's like, you either need to like, buck it up somehow and like start making better moves, or you should probably hike out or whatever. So yeah, I bucked up. I was able to paddle out. I don't know how though, right? It's just, it's just hard to like mind over matter sometimes. And again, it just comes down to like no one's gonna paddle my kayak for me, right? So I need to focus and make it happen. So.
Yeah, that mental fortitude you develop in those moments, it must help somewhere else later in life. Is there?
Oh, it's excellent. Yeah, I'm a charge nurse in the emergency room, so it's pretty much like, it's a very stressful work environment, and the whole a lot of times like you feel like you're responsible for everything, the flow of the ER, the patient care, like your nurses, everything, and you find that whoever your leader is, like that sets the tone of the day or the vibe, or and it's like makes a big impact. So I partly think that kayaking is, partly responsible for making me a decent charge nurse.
Yeah, I would have those same inverse moments on the river, like you're talking about. Like the one side, like, oh, I'm so like you're at the bottom of a waterfall looking up, right? And it's just like such a stoke that you can't imagine any other way. But then I've had the same thing as you sitting on the side, like, what I would give to just be on the couch watching TV right now. I don't even own a TV. I was like, I just want to be on the couch watching TV right now.
Yeah, it's a real thing. I mean, as much joy as we experience with the sport, there's that much suffering really that, that equals it. And I think that's that's just kind of how life works, I think, right? Like I think um sometimes people that have had to grieve situations have the ability to love deeper, and really to get in contact with that part of their being. So yeah,
Yeah, everything
joy
in
and
life,
joy and
right?
suffering. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never one thing I've realized I've never been able to do in life is beat that yin yang symbol. Like everything it just ends up balanced in the end, no matter what choice you make.
Yeah, yeah.
Different
Um,
trade-offs, different benefits.
yeah, but it's all, yeah, just trying to be in that balance. Yeah, absolutely. No, just, I, still struggle with cycles of like, the yin and the yang and the finding the balance. And it's kind of, it's weird. Like sometimes I come back to square one of like, why haven't I been doing these things that, produce, mental health and physical health, which like then in turn makes me a better mom and a better nurse, and, like taking care of yourself. Right. And then like, you know, finding that balance of like making sure that you're like feeding your soul, and not just, taking care of your responsibilities. And I don't know, like you'll get me off on a tangent.
Like put hard work on the front end, right? On whatever it is, health or work or kids or whatever, you get it on the back end.
Yeah, no, we work hard to play hard. It's our motto, one of our mottos here. And then we have Me sam Liliske Komanda, which is Latvian for we make a great team. But yeah, like, you know, certainly you could say like we have a luxurious lifestyle, but it's like, nothing's been given. It's all hard work, and we don't complain about it. I'm grateful for, where I've ended up and the course that I'm on currently, and the evolution that my life's taken. And I couldn't taking back any of those days kayaking, like it's or just the days I've been given rather, to get to spend just like uninhibited and um you know, being myself on the river, and like growing up at that age is what a blessing, Feel really fortunate for that for sure.
And you think kind of when you fell in, sort of sounds like you fell in with BJ and Katie early, which are just such legends of Whitewater. But and you think that kind of gave you a nurture or like a supportive environment where you could feel confident as a woman, to be able, it seems like it's one thing, right? When all these guys are saying they don't want to run a drop to them as a woman, like I can see a line, I'm gonna go for it, right? I mean that takes where do you think you kind of were able to develop that?
That's a good question. I mean, so yes, definitely having BJ and Katie, like I certainly had a support crew of just like, I was definitely the younger counterpart to their group. And, the fact that they, allowed me to like jump in the RV and cruise out across, I wasn't even 21, was said a lot. Um, and I had to think about this before because, I was never like, I feel like I've heard that certainly influenced women to like, be stronger and like, attack and, be that part of themselves. I think it probably comes from my upbringing with my parents about, that I could do anything I put my mind to. That was what I was taught. I mean, it was definitely raised in a Christian environment, and it was probably more like you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, which is Philippians 4:13. The fact that I can regurgitate that is insane. But and so that probably is really where it started, right? My parents, and from their perspective, I think that came from like the Christianity religious part of it anyway. But regardless of that, like in high school, we had a really strong female athletic team. So basketball, volleyball, softball, like I think a lot of high schools back then didn't, offer great programs for females. So like from day one, I was just always encouraged that to be strong, that I could do anything I wanted to, that I could do anything I put my mind to, that I could do anything that I worked hard for. So that kind of set me up. Then when I was like 18 or whatever, started traveling with BJ and Katie. Yeah, I literally never really thought about it, I do recall running the gorilla on the green and like total diverted with this other group of people. I was like heading one place on the freeway and passed this kayaker and pulled over to talk with him. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm coming to the green with you. And it was the first time I'd been there and I'd heard about it. And so I ran gorilla and I come home to West Virginia like the next weekend for during Golly, and there's like this whole rumor that like it didn't go well, and she almost died, and can't believe she this and that, and that rumor was coming from a male who was on the trip who didn't run gorilla. That taught me real quick and early that I don't care what you say about me. I was there, I know what happened, and I saw a line, and I'm gonna run it, or so right away it was just kind of like doesn't even matter what I do, people are going to talk, people are going to try to put down me just for being a girl, and so I kind of like developed that just like careless attitude towards that. Like I always knew like I'm out here to have fun, right? Like it was nice to be sponsored in the later, and actually like the bigger sponsors came in later anyway, so it was never like, oh, maybe I could get money to do this. I was just like a young dirtbag, just like paddling and enjoying myself. And then I will say like I got to paddle with Teo, who I looked up to as soon as I saw video of him on the West Coast. Like I remember watching it at Start Moon Kayaks in Fayetteville, and like, oh wow, like who's this kid, he's going off, right? And then I was like, oh yeah, I would love to get to paddle with him. And so we got to paddle, did some filming with Eric Link, and he would second guess, we would be scouting and he would try to get in my mind about like, no, that doesn't, like, what you're going to do, what, like if I was like, oh yeah, I see this line, let's like boof in on river right, and then blah blah blah, like it was never like, oh yeah, I could see that. It's always like, you can't do that, like, and so it kind of like that started wearing on me, right? Like I didn't notice it towards the end until the end where it was like building up, and then I was kind of just like, you know, I I mean, I'm not on here to trash talk people, but that was a very difficult process in my kayaking. And if I really want to be honest with you, like we could talk about the Johnston Falls and how, what's another word than cock block? I don't know. What would you call it? Basically that's what he did. And it's unfortunate because like we were scouting Johnston Falls and it looks good. And we sent, Teo's boat off. We were like, let's send a boat over, right? We'd send a log or something. Cause this is like that 100-footer that's like, they ice climb it in the winter, right? The water just freezes and people ice climb it. So it's like that carved out waterfall where it doesn't fall away from the rock. So it's just like real steep. And like 100 foot. But 3/4 of the way down, there's like this like flake underwater that kind of like you'd see a spray, and we were worried um like is that going to kick your boat out and you're going to land flat, mocking, and like break your back or something. So we had Sam Drevel was there, we had a whole crew, and we were like, let's throw a boat over. Somebody mentioned like you see what happens, and so Ted's like, I'm not throwing my boat over there. I was like, well, whatever, I'll throw my boat. And So the boat runs it. The boat has a fine line. It's like the, I'm running it. It looks good. I literally, it's probably the easiest waterfall. And I don't get to say that because I didn't get to run it. But here's what happened. So I go down, hike all the way down to get my kayak and come back up. And as I get back up, like I was like putting on knee pads and, ready to go. And so, which is fine. I knew I was going to run it. And I figured that, he was going to run it if I was going to run it. Because we were like, pretty same caliber, right? And so he put 2 gallons of water at where we had 2 milk jugs empty. I don't know where that came from, but he put water in the front of the boat because he thought to himself, like, this will make sure that my nose stays down and that I don't like come out, right? However, how often do you paddle with milk, in your, or like gallons of water in the front of your head, above your bulkhead or in front of your bulkhead? So anyway, what happened, what I witnessed is like he comes, it's like this real easy flat lead in. So basically, and right as his like nose is going over the lip there, like the front end kind of wobbles, right? Because it's got all this weight. And he kind of like clipped the wall with his paddle, one of the sides, and whatever. He made it down and he was rolled up, broke his paddle, he's fine. He comes running up and he's like, don't do it. Don't do it, Shannon. It's too dangerous. Oh my God. Like, I care about you. You really can't. You can't. And I was like, what? And like, again, at this point, like, this was the culmination of our trip, like the end of it. And I was tired of just like someone telling me what to do. And I lost it. I lost my composure and I was mad and like probably yelling and cussing. And then I couldn't run it because I wasn't in the right mindset. And it was like, now if she runs it, Teo told her not to run it. What if something happens? And not only like that, what if like someone had told me not to? It's just like, I can't cool my jets now. Like, I'm so pissed off. I was Now, the biggest bummer to that story is that the next rapid downstream still had to paddle out. I totally messed it up. And who gets to save me? Teo. And that was a scary swim, actually. But I mean, honestly, well, I mean, I just wasn't in the right. I probably should have just hiked out, right? I was like so like not in the right space to be kayaking. The hindsight's 2020 or whatever. But it was just a really unfortunate, to be honest with you, like kind of the ending of like a relationship of like a paddling partner. I hadn't ever really experienced, like, again, growing up with Clay and BJ, they were always, very firm, right? And BJ was like, I used to say a tough love as well. I'm not here to help you put on your spray skirt, right? If you can't put your spray skirt on, then you can't paddle the rapid, like when your hands are just like freezing and you don't have the power. Stuff like that, just to like it really kind of enabling me, or not enabling me, right? Like, but enabling me to be independent and to be independent. And that's probably, I have them to thank for that, right? So I was, yeah, I was in a supportive group of people growing up kayaking. So to like kind of transition into this, like someone who's more my age, and really negative, and also different, like goal driven in a different way, was, I don't think it was like probably overall healthy for my kayaking relationship, but it is what it is. It was just something I went through and learned from. But yeah.
And that waterfall went on to really make Teo's career, really, right? I mean, that was what, really went viral, that whole Johnston, whether he was even vertical or not. But
Yeah, it was like a big deal. Sure. No, like I said, like, I mean, it's funny as far as like, well, I guess that would probably be like one regret. Yeah, I mean, would I love to go back there and run Johnston Falls? Absolutely. And honestly, I don't like, that would be easier than going to run the South Yuba, which is class, 4+5 to me. It's like, it's all about body language in the air. And that's kind of like, a lot of people are definitely like technical whitewater, right? Like running waterfalls can be kind of easy, if you are comfortable in the air and you have good body awareness, and ability to control that. Versus like, I've always felt like the technical stuff in between some of these drops, like for example, on Royal Gorge, like I was talking about, like that 3 mile lead in, it's just like, that's real easy to mess up. And sometimes the waterfalls are not necessarily the hardest rapid on the river.
Funny how you remember the ones you didn't run almost more than the ones you did, right? It's almost like the mind, it's like does it with everyday life too, right? It replays your missteps a lot more than your victories to like make you better.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about that, but sure. Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, a lot of great waterfalls in between all of that for sure. And yeah, it's just interesting, like getting your kids into it on you really think about it like as it's just like it's such a dangerous sport. It really is, and I know that they're like hucking cliffs, skiing and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, you like break a leg or something, but drowning's like it's more life or death, kind of like the parachuters and like that stuff's real like, you don't come away with a broken arm. You like don't come away at all. So feel very fortunate to have like a safe career, overall kayaking and, but it's also like being an ER nurse is just like, there's so much we don't get to choose. Right. And so like, living life to its fullest and having those things that like, fulfill your passion and like, really like make your soul feel the depth and the growth or just like the like where we are in the universe, right? Some of those moments that are just really magical, um those are just as important. So it's yeah, now I'm sounding like I'm gonna be like an old wise woman.
No, the Johnson, it's like Teo's just so competitive, right? It doesn't matter if you're a frog, he would be competing. But it's like
Yeah,
almost everyone, right? In these intense sports like kayaking, right, where it is life and death. It's like to see a woman do something you didn't do, right? There's some subconscious effect, whether you act on it or not. Some guys are just sweet and don't. Taylor and Ben, whoever. But then it's like some, like the guy on the green, you just can't get over. You have to. They vent somewhere. And must
yeah,
happen all the time.
that's true. I mean, I like to think that maybe we're growing away from that, but probably not. I mean, it just is, it's like the birds and the bees. It's kind of just natural. I think you're right for like, the I don't know, the male gender, just like the testosterone, all that, like, yeah, I get it. It would suck to be beat by a girl, I suppose. But I never really thought about it. Um, but I mean, I do remember thinking like, when I ran Sahaley Falls, like, yeah, and you were like, well, how did word spread back then? I have no idea. But like suddenly that evening, all the local kayakers knew that their waterfall had been run by a girl, from the East Coast, not very old, like I think I was 20. Um, yeah, I think that burned a bit. Like they've probably been scouting it forever, right? It's just like hadn't nut up to run it, and even then, no one ran it 10 years, right? I think it was Tyler Bratt, that ran it 10 years later. Like even though it really became it set the tone for like we're looking to break a waterfall, right? The whole Park and Huck scene. And I think then it was like Dave Grove who had run Metlaco next or Eagle Creek or I'm not a very good historian. But that it became a thing where it's like we're looking for like a waterfall, whether it's even like in the middle of a river or we like down a stretch or we're just gonna park and huck. Like and that's actually how we found Sahaley. We were looking at the Northwest Waterfall Lovers Guidebook, I think BJ and Katie had, which makes sense, like let's find, it was first ascents and stuff like that, like looking into it. But that set off the chain of events of like, people seeking out a world breaking waterfall, world record breaking waterfall. But I didn't even know there was a world record when I ran Sahaley. And after I ran it, I found out that it was, Baker from England with like a 45 footer or whatever. So like that became a thing. But now, right? You got Palooza. I mean, like, holy cow. The, I mean, and I like watching Dane like backflip Sahaley. Oh my God, back Cobra, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's amazing, amazing, right? And I don't think we envisioned that back when I was in the golden era.
That's awesome. You guys just had the scenic waterfall guidebook. Let's go check out that one. Let's go check out that one. We used to do it. We used to look at postcards, even, places. And then in Iceland, we got the same thing, like a scenic waterfall book, and just drove around going, checking them out. But so then once you saw it, you guys pulled up. Were you like, did it happen right away, or did you kind of?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is we hadn't scouted, what's the one below it called? Saheli, and then, it's not Kusa. Anyway, the one below it, which looks easier. But no, we got out. We're only scouting Saheli, and I said my exact words were they should make this runnable. Like I was like, this should be in an amusement park for kayakers. It looks amazing. Um, but then you're like, well, like, could there be rocks in the bottom? And people are always like, well, how do you ever know? And like unless you're like with a snorkel or like a scuba gear, you don't know, right? Like it's reading water hydrology, which I don't think that's what it's reading hydrology, and just the experience of being at the base of waterfalls and stuff. And then with all of that, there's still a risk you're taking. So I don't know. I just was like, this looks runnable. And then like we went to the top and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go for it. Again, like I don't know. Those are long gone days. I think I just I certainly had the personality of just being free and not really thinking about again what other people were thinking and you know being the best that I could be, which is what my parents had told me I could be. So,
You're tapped in for sure. And so you just ran it that day, or come back
yeah,
the
no,
next
we ran
day?
we ran it that day. Yeah. And then that night the guys at the bar were like pretty bummed, I think. I think they came out to congratulate us, but they're probably like, oh, some girl ran our waterfall. So sad. So this is a funny story. Back to it. We went to Disneyland, and my daughters like they have that rafting ride, right? It's like a big log raft, a big circle, and then it's on a track, but it's got some waterfalls and stuff. And we ran at the end of the day because it was like December, so everyone was going to get wet and cold. But my girls wanted to do it, and so we get in. We're with this other family, and I was like, having a blast, like, woo, all right, this is great. And my oldest was like, she goes, well, yeah, like I think I said something like this feels real, like these rapids are fun. And Davina was like, well, my mom would know because she like holds record for waterfalls. And I thought it was so funny. I mean, the family that was with us, like they didn't notice or like really pay attention to what she was saying, but I just thought it was really cute that my girls see that and that they know, a little bit about my history, and I hope that that gives them the confidence and the courage and the way that I'm raising them to know that they too can do anything that they want. So it's just like passing it on to the generations and any of the females, you know, that are out there kayaking. It's yeah, things haven't changed from what I hear. I there's like some younger kayakers that I used to stay in close contact with the last couple of years, and it sounds like they still get a lot of like, oh, you're a female, like we have to prove that we're good enough to paddle with you. But um, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's more about just like finding the people that do support you. Finding good male kayakers, because it's always great to paddle with people that are better than you as well, and just finding your crew, right? And then not feeling like you're proving yourself, but just getting out there and doing your best. So yeah,
Yeah, not giving a shit what people think about you is always good advice in life, right? And it turns out people think about you a lot less than you think they do in the end.
that's true. But man, it's good. It's hard, right? I don't even know how to raise kids, and like the social media, and like everyone's showing their best side all the time. I mean, I did my hair and makeup this morning. I didn't totally wake up like this, but and it's like, being yourself and like teaching the kids that, and like, that's hard. I don't know how, like, you just have to learn, I guess, through experience. But yes, I was fortunate to have a good group of, like I said, I mean, suppose naming the two most important there would be like BJ, Katie, and Clay, three most. But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of influences. Um, looking up to other females as well, like Buffy Bailey, Jamie Simon, Nikki Kelly. You know, we certainly had a stout group of females that were holding it down together. So that helps.
Yeah, that was an amazing group that really paved the way for all these younger ones for sure.
Marianne Sather, yeah, and I know she's still just out there like killing it, and it's yeah, I mean, yeah, surrounding yourself with good people. I don't know. We're just definitely raising the girls to be strong out here in Truckee for sure. Like these females are going to be something to reckon with for sure. Like they're pretty full on athletes, and I also want them to know that they can be all girly if they want. That was certainly part of who I was and who I still am, and the mix of like I get to paddle with the boys, and I get to like be a badass, but then I get to like feel pretty and be in tune with like that feminine side of myself. I always felt like it was like the best of both worlds.
Well, Clay's still the exact same with every kayaker he meets, he's just still the exact same stoked, the exact same, telling you what movie's working on. And he's still, if you come out to the mountain games, it's still Nick, Emily, Clay, EJ, they're all still competing in the freestyle.
Yeah, Romulus is he's true to himself for sure. Yeah, I know he's got a huge stoke on kayaking, and I think he's like, I mean, I love that man for sure. And just like, he was always full of lots of good knowledge and good tips and, good advice for sure. I know, like my total dream is like to book my band in Vale for the mountain games, come out, play a gig, do some boater cross, bring the family, go watch some of the events. Maybe in the next year or so, we'll try to line that up. That'll be fun. I'll get my EPK together and send that out. Maybe do some. Told Rush he's got to hit me up. We got to collab on some of his music. So it's fun to see what everybody's getting into as they reinvent themselves, as you will.
Yeah, for sure. That's been awesome to see Rush's music come along and yours as well.
Yeah, I mean, because Rush was like a junior on the Junior Worlds on like Spain in 2004 or something when I was on the freestyle. I remember old baby Rush, but that's
And
the
for those guys, right, they must have thought this sport was going to the moon, right? Because the whole generation kind of before Rush and Tyler and all those guys, it was really seemed like kayaking was going to the moon, and they kind of all jumped in, and there was such a high, took it to such a high level, but then all kind of the money sort of evaporated on them.
well, yeah, but he reinvented himself with cinematography, or it's not even reinvented, just like the evolution of um of his place in kayaking and like what he's doing, and yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's different. I'm sure it's very different these days. I'm not part of the scene by any means. But what did I got in some ripping boat the other day? Well, it was last summer actually, but just on the South Yuba, it was just carving and surfing so good. My friend had just gotten, I wish I could remember which one it was. But anyway, um, and yeah, just getting back to like what just being on the water, it's just so good. It's so good. So we're gonna head down there
Well,
and
and that takes a reinvention, right? It feels like people, after you get so deep into it, it's like you have to reinvent your love for kayaking again, sort of at a different level.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying about like, being, managing my time and what I'm doing. And it's kind of funny because I used to tell my friends, probably this was like more than 10 years ago, I'd be like, I mean, it's like I want to go class 5 kayaking, right? I either want to like go like South Yuba class 4 plus or whatever, or not go kayaking. That was like where I was at least 10 years ago. And then it was like, um, now, yeah, I want to take my kids. And I remember last summer, like some friends were like in a paddle the Truckee, which it'd be class two, I don't even know, like small, right? And I'm like, I was like, no, no, I have like a small window. I need to go for a jog, and then I need to like, pay bills or whatever. I had like these responsibility to-do lists for the day. And I was like, I can get all of this done if I don't go kayaking, 'cause that's going to take longer. And I was like, the Truckee, like whatever, boring. And so like I went for a jog on the Legacy Trail, which is right by the Truckee, and I was like jogging along, and I was like, oh, well, that looks kind of fun, class two, which it is. It's fun, like just like catching eddies and stuff like that. So, yeah, just going through the evolution of, what I'm going to spend my time on, and, what I have another funny story, but it involves my kids. We were floating the Truckee, and that was, uh, like in a, let's say duckies and like, inner tubes, right? So let me see. Hold on, my phone is losing battery. But so one time, like, yeah, my friends were like, oh yeah, we're gonna tube the Truckee, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna meet you like halfway because I get a whatever. So I show up. I think I had like my life jacket. I might have even had a helmet. Definitely like my 5'10" water shoes, and my friends are in like bikinis, drinking beer in the eddy, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I mean, growing up on the New River, when we would enter tube the river, like we definitely wore a life jacket, but that I guess is like more CFS. I don't know. It's like I think it's dangerous for people to be like floating in an inner tube on the Truckee, especially like these totally unexperienced people, completely intoxicated. But so then they were joking like, "Oh, here comes Shannon Carroll with her life jacket and her helmet," like making fun of me. And then like years later, I took Savannah down, and she was a baby. I think she was probably 6 months. Like she was tiny, right? But in like a life jacket. Maybe she was like one. I don't know. But she was in like the tiny life jacket. And I was like in my friend's ducky. He had like a double ducky. She was like at the age where you like had to hold her the whole time. So and we had like inner tubes and duckies and everything. And then I don't even know the Truckee River very well as far as like where's the big rapid or whatever. But my buddy Jared was like recalls it that I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna get out here and like get in the inner tube with Savannah. Like I'm done with your ducky or whatever. Like which was above the biggest drop, which again I don't know which ones those are. So I get I get in the inner tube with Savannah, and like we're going down, and then it's like anyway, I got between like these two rocks. It was not a great area. So like my feet are on the two side rocks, and I was getting like squeezed through like this, tiny like little pour over with the inner tube and the baby. And I like stand up because I need to be safe. And the baby's like arching its back, like Savannah's like, oh my God. And it's like my husband goes by in his ducky, and he's like, what is going on? Like it was like pretty dangerous moment. But I got out, and then I traversed over to the side of the river, and I was like, I'm hiking out. I'm hiking out now because I'm not making very good decisions with a baby. But again, I just like sometimes I don't think like class two, class three. I'm just like, yeah, it's whitewater, like we're gonna be fine. And maybe I should have stayed in the ducky with the child, but we're still learning to parent.
Yeah, and you figure all these adventures you take the kids on, it's gonna pay off someday with the way they live their life.
Oh, it's totally good for them. The girls are good for sure. Um, yeah, she's
So after Shahaley, was it kind of all of a sudden getting like sponsors and press and things like that? Was that kind of a weird transition? Did that kind of happen?
yeah, that did kind of like set things set things on a path for sure of like, enabling me to, that's when I got like more of like the out of it, like Red Bull, Oakley, stuff like that, where you know, I think, those were really sustainable sponsors to really be able to do what I was doing. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think I think that, at the time it was just I kind of had the right personality for Red Bull, like very outgoing, um, you know, don't mind the attention, just positive, fun loving kind of party girl who could kayak. So yeah, that was really fortunate to be hooked up with those guys for a while, and then they were able to like sponsor some trips and some ideas. I think like the what do we do with Scott? Scott filmed the east down by the east fork of the, oh my God, hold on, the Kaweah, the east fork of the Kaweah. Drawing a blank. We did like a first ascent down there. So yeah, that was, like having that resource was like huge, to be able to like do some things. But I was always really bad like with my sponsors. And again, this is probably why I didn't go into like marketing stand-up paddle boards or something else as a career, because I would be doing these great things, but I wouldn't write back to talk about them. And I'm not very good about like writing articles, although I am very well written. So I don't know why I never did that. Um, like it would drive my dad crazy. He would like turn on the TV and see some random like thing on NBC or whatever. And he's like, why didn't you tell me this was happening? Or whatever. Because I was just really like living in the moment, and that's great. But to be a professional athlete, like you really have to have a balance of the marketing skills and like presenting your work and your worth for that matter. So yeah, I rode that for a while, and they were always really good to me. And yeah, and then like I said, finally I was just like, all right, should probably go to nursing school. So bust that
Well, it
up.
was hard to think of those action sports kind of in that way of where people were really training for it, like you would for football or these other sports. I don't think it had entered the consciousness so much. And even the promoting yourself, I think it was just all so new. But obviously, Teo took it to a whole level, on both training and promoting,
Yeah,
I
he was
guess.
very good at that, and he was able to tap in and really like monetize and capitalize on that, which again, I respect him for that for sure. Like it's one thing to say like, "Oh, I wish I was better at that," and it's another to like buckle down and become better at that, right? And I didn't do that. But
But look at the yin and the yang of, the yin and the yang he had to give up for that, right? You're not the first Teo story I've heard similar on
oh,
here, right? It kind of.
yeah, I don't know. I think I wish him well, of course. I don't have any like ill thought for people or like, and I think he's very successful from what I've heard, and that's awesome, right? And like and that's just kind of growing up, right? And like, wanting everyone to be their best. But it's funny because like I'm a very competitive nature. Like with music, it's like I want to be the best. But everyone's different as far as music goes. It's like everyone has a different voice. Like you might be different, and I want to promote others doing great, but I still want to be the best. And that's just, that comes with a competitive nature, and that is also probably what helped to drive me, kayaking and like, getting out after it in that sense. It's just always wanting to be the best. But yeah, I mean, this was like even before, like I don't think I ever even ended up having a GoPro on my head, which is like basic, right? Like that's easy. And because that's like it started like when I was like maybe towards the end of my career. I mean, at the same time, I was usually on the other side of the camera. And I will say that I don't know, some of like all of these videos that are just GoPro footage are kind of tricky. Like it doesn't. It's like I think the whitewater looks bigger when you have like perspective, right, from like a camera on the side of the river. Like I think only kayakers can watch constant GoPro footage. Like I can because I love kayaking and I know what's behind kayaking. But to show someone like, oh, check this out, like from this perspective, it's kind of, I don't know. I think they're like, okay, that's great, next, and they don't like get the gravity of what we're actually doing. But yeah, like I never even had a GoPro on my helmet. That's how old I am. Here.
I mean, the internet, right? I remember in 2000, right? There's still, I mean, maybe the companies had web pages and we're starting to put .com after their name, but that was about it.
I mean, yeah, it's like MySpace. And then Facebook was like when I met Demshits. And again, they're like at least a decade younger than me. That's when Facebook started and the whole, social media and everything. Anyway, yeah, it's different.
Piranha, always, has had a lot of energy, through all those generations, right? VJ, Teo, yourself. the Dimshits crew, Dave. Like who's kind of the person who makes all that happen in the U.S. for Piranha?
Well, nowadays I think it's Vasily. I mean it was Denver and Johan back in my time. Graham owns Piranha, or he did when I was growing up in England. But yeah, whoever we oh my, and I'm gonna space some important names here, right? But yeah, I don't know how they just kind of locked in, right? I think it was, BJ and the micro, right, running everything in the creek boating, and then starting the videos and stuff, and then that became like then they were able to get the RV and make it the Piranha RV, and it just sort of like evolved that way. But I mean, I did really love being a part of Piranha. Like I liked the who we were, as far as like our image. And yeah, I don't know. It's funny, like asking kayak companies for money to go kayaking. They're always kind of like, do we really need to pay you? So which was why it was really good to have like the out of industry sponsors, right? They had a little bit more deeper pockets and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. And then Dimshits really took off with it, right? With the orange bitch that ordered the van or whatever they call it and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't want to get too personal, but I mean, I might as well but so the other day I was like watching some kayak footage, and then I was like, did I act like this when I was young? Because it just felt like people were like trying hard to be cool. And it's like, yeah, we're gonna fuck shit up, and it's gonna be rad, and like whatever the way they're talking about. And again, I was telling my friends about that, and I'm like, I think I'm just getting old. Like I don't know. I was just kind of like, but I mean, we are an alternative sport, and it's the same in skiing, right? Like being cool and like sending it, and that's normal. But now the young kids are gonna listen to this and think I'm a real idiot, but they'll understand as they get older, and then like raising kids and like seeing both sides of the coin a lot, and I just was like, it was funny to me. And then I rewatched it, the video. I'm not going to name the video. And then I rewatched it. I was like, no, I'm just being silly. I'm being overly critical and kind of ridiculous. Like, let kids be kids. I'm sure I had acted real ridiculous too. And I definitely thought I was cool. Very.
I say take all the time you can to act ridiculous and think you're cool. Might as well.
It's true. It's
Journey's
true.
short.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what got into me the other day. I was kind of laughing at myself. Like, boy, it's be really boring these days. Not at all.
And it makes sense that that Piranha team was kind of homegrown, it kind of felt homegrown, compared to, Chan steering wave sport or Dagger kind of having the whole direction. It felt like almost the paddlers just created it. We're like, hey, yeah, we're here too.
Yeah, I mean, Wave Sport was like onto their thing, right? And like that's kind of what I became good friends with Jamie Simon, or excuse me, Jamie Cooper. And I'm still very good friends with her. She's in Reno. But it's just funny to think back. I can remember like being in Colorado at some event, and they're like doing like a photo shoot for their calendar, and they definitely like were trying to implement the marketing aspects, whereas kind of I think Piranha sort of had like that natural like people were drawn to them naturally for whatever reason. I mean, they kind of had like they had a little bit of the bad boy image as well, I think. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure I was trying to be very cool in my Piranha kayak because like it's just funny being going through life and the different stages of like you know learning and how you treat people and how you act and how you present yourself and stuff like that. But boy, I had a good time and a lot of good parties and a lot of good some really good stories that I haven't told my kids yet, but I'll get there. Definitely some close calls, both on and off the river with different things. And yeah, it's just, nature and nurture made me who I am today. And everybody gets different experiences, it's kind of cool. You don't know what yours is going to be made up of.
It'll surprise you.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I would have loved to have done more in like Chile or I didn't actually ever have like a really charging trip to I've been to Norway, but it wasn't like, all the big runs out there and stuff like that. But that's the thing. There's just like there's kayaking is endless, and traveling and getting to do that, it's a luxury for sure, being able to live that lifestyle. Yeah, and not feel like you're part of the rat race for a while, getting outside of that.
Yeah, that was awesome talking to Gravier a few weeks ago and about just the genesis of all that and him just being like, I want a team, I want to like create some team I'm a part of, and it was so influenced by snowboarding, and what they had done, and then things like the Crusty Demons of Dirt movies and just seeing what it could be. But yeah, it seems like he just put such a surge of energy into that whole team scene for that era.
Yes, right, for sure. And so Gavir, like Dan, he came from like a different background, and he definitely was a catalyst for a lot of that. And then it's like for me, again, I was more just like, ooh, I get to be along for the ride. Like I wasn't at all, like I didn't. I grew up very conservative, doing like traditional sports, and then in the summer I was kayaking, and then that's sort of how I grew into that, right? And so just getting to like hook up with BJ and Katie, and I mean, I was not at all in charge of where we were going or what we were doing. I would sleep in the back and like show up at the put in, like wake up at the put in and be ready, completely spoiled brat probably. Um, and Katie, she was like the boss lady, right? And getting it done. And I remember being in like trucks with, Willie Kern reading topo maps, which they probably don't do anymore, and just like looking for first descents and being out in the middle of nowhere here in California, looking for different rivers, with Wilson at the helm, navigating us through like these old fire roads. And yeah, I mean, lots of time just driving, and then we get somewhere and look at the, topo lines and be like, oh, it looks like steep gradient about a mile in, and maybe let's give it a go, stuff like that. But that's just like the exploration aspect of kayaking those days in my life. It was pretty cool to be a part of. I think there's a little less untapped now, but people are still searching for sure. And what's possible is, more than what we thought was possible at that time. Some of the big stuff out there. People are running it, making
Yeah,
it look easy. Yeah.
that discovery aspect, finding river, going figuring it out. That's such a special part of the sport.
Yep. Yeah. We'll see what the kids do, like next, right? Like in my neighborhood, there's a bunch of kids that are paddling. They're going to go down the Grand Canyon. And I was thinking about like trying to teach Davina how to roll in the pool the other day, and I was like, she doesn't want to learn from me. I was like, I'm just gonna call up one of my neighborhood friends, like their kids are older, and then she gets to go be in the water and like have fun. Like nobody wants to learn something probably from their mom if they have a chance to do it with some 16-year-old boy. So we're blessed with like, older kids in the neighborhood here that are like already like a step ahead of us and just like make it fun. And yeah, who knows what they're going to be doing next. But I don't know. I think Dane's got it monopolized right now, the goat, if you will.
Been the goat since that Whitewater Grand Prix when he was maybe 20. But so you said you keep in touch with a couple of younger female kayakers. Who's that you kind of keep in
Oh,
touch
I'm
with?
gonna braze over that right now. We've had some conflicts lately. It turns out not
Cool.
everybody wants my advice, so um,
Yeah.
just some local California people. But I know, like, I don't know. I just remember, competing with Eric Jackson and Dane being in the RV watching videos of me. So they say Dane's just watching another kayak video of Shannon. But that's now my claim to fame. Um, but I think that's it was pretty cute back then, growing up with those guys on the water for sure. And then we got ourselves in trouble, like Ben and I were like left the Salida event one year, like they didn't have very much water, and Mama Jackson had to let us know. Christine was like not impressed that we weren't supporting the sport. But that's because we were driving straight out to go to Fantasy Falls, and so I don't know, it's tricky, right? Like having your priorities straight. Like for me, the priority was creek boating, whereas like Christine saw the bigger picture of like trying to promote and support the sport, by being present for the event, even though like the water levels weren't great and stuff like that. But again, like that's just the young kids wanting to put their own, goals first. So I mean, looking back, I would probably say, oh, I see Christine, had a point and she was probably right. But at the same time, you can't exchange sleeping on Fantasy Falls without even a pocket pad or a thermarest. It was like one of our first overnighters. We're like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna show up. We were like sleeping on the granite, like totally unprepared.
Yeah,
But
you got to be a part of that, like, kind of third generation, I guess it would be, of High Sierra paddlers, right? I guess there's the fiberglass and there was, Holbeck and those guys, and
mhm.
then, Turns and Lindgren, and
Yeah, that's probably
yeah, that was
right.
really a special era.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Lots of good days. We didn't do a lot of the gruesome twosome, just running things with two people. I always felt like that was like, and I never did any of the paddling solo. Didn't have the desire for that. I did enjoy doing, oh shoot, the Seven Sisters, I think it's called, outside of Ottawa, um, at midnight, like in the dark, with John Reagan and Willie and Colby, BJ. Um, that's crazy. Like paddling class five, like in midnight black, like it's such a different feeling, right? You like really are feeling the boat instead of like seeing, that was cool. But that's like, yeah, that was something I recall. It was feeling like, really pushing the limit there for myself. Like, woo, this is putting it out there. um,
When you're tapped in, you're tapped in.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I was in the pocket for a long time. I felt like with kayaking, for sure. Even when I was paddling with Teo, and he wouldn't necessarily agree with my line as far as scouting it. I was at that point already pretty confident in my ability, because I'd already had at least a handful of years with BJ and Clay and Katie, and being able to like have confidence in like my boating, like kind of already knew what I was doing. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I remember like meeting Scott Lindgren for the first time. We came out with Falling Down. We stayed at Driftwood Productions. They had like that little office in Sacramento, and it's like so hot right in the summer in the foothills. And I was like napping in the closet, which is like a walk-in closet, all right. But I was like taking a nap, is like where all their videos were held, and I kind of like woke up, and like I like overheard them talking about me. I had just run Sahaley that summer. Um, and I was like a nobody, um not as opposed to now where I'm a somebody. But anyway, and I overheard Scott saying, I don't know about this girl, she seems like a wild card. That was it. Like I think BJ had just shown him like the footage of Sahaley, and he was just like I was immediately written off. Like and again, this is going to go back to like men not naturally supporting women in the sport. And I mean, yeah, that bummed me out big time. I had just met these people, and I remember we were going to Golden Gate that evening for like a later day paddle, late afternoon, and I got in the car with Jamie Simon and Clay Wright, and I was like so upset. I was like, this guy doesn't even know me. I can't believe he would say something like that about me. Like, this is horrible. And I'm like 20, right? It's like barely little baby. And anyway, I remember like those guys just kind of being like, They were just kind of like, oh, it's just Scott, like whatever, like it's just like not a big deal. And sure, it's no, I guess not a big deal. Like you learn that people are going to talk about you whether they know you or not. And but that one in particular, like it kind of didn't set me off on a great. I had a lot of experiences with Scott, since then. That was like the very first meeting him, and then we did some projects together and stuff like that. And he'll, you've probably seen his video about, sort of his personality back in the day. He was very harsh, but again, he likes to think about like being responsible for people that are on the river and, um, if he, but I also would have a hard time being like, I don't think you can tell me like you can't tell me what I can and can't do, right? And if he'd be like, well, I feel like you haven't been paddling much lately, and we're gonna go do this project, so you're actually not invited. That happened once, and I'm like, no, no, like I don't feel like it's okay to like I don't know tell someone that I don't know. It's hard, right? Like you want the group to be safe, and you don't want loose cannons. I think that I've been called that before, loose cannon. But yeah, I don't know. I tell my girls just like, you be you, you stand by your decisions, you be proud of who you are, and you answer to yourself, right? You come home, you answer to your family. You don't answer to anybody else. So no matter what they're thinking or, what you hear people saying, like if you know in your heart that you've done your best or that you're prepared for this or that then that's just it. You answer to yourself and your family, and that's the rest. The rest doesn't mean anything. It's just black noise. But
One thing that's cool about the new generation, I think, is there's not the gatekeepers like Lindgren, right? To get out there, you can just create your own content. And before it was you had to be in with BJ or Philman or Lindgren or whoever, and nowadays people can just be their own film company.
well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's all sorts of footage out there. Some you might want to watch and some you might not want to. But yeah, yeah, like I mean everybody has like all of the tools at their fingertips these days, So like with the editing and everything, like it's like people make it look easy. I mean, I don't know, like half the time I'm like, dang it, I should be like an influencer on Instagram. I should be like mom who does it all. Like sometimes I literally think about this, so, any which way I can get out of like working a real job, even though I said nursing is rewarding, it's actually really hard work and a lot with our like different aspects that we deal with, like drugs and alcohol and mental health. Like some of those patients, like people don't understand what's actually going on in an ER and how people come in and how nurses are treated. Like it's rough. But yeah, so like it'd be like, like I should be like influencer. I should write a book. What should I do? I should wear a GoPro around all day and put it out there. But
So all the trade-offs
eh,
can never be content.
right.
So and luckily for every like gatekeeper like Lindgren, there's someone like a Chuck Kern who is just really welcoming.
Yeah. Yeah. The Kern brothers are next level for sure. Pretty special. All three of them. I mean, I had brief time with Chuck since he died so young, but Johnny's still big part of my life, and Wilson certainly had a big impact back in the day. Um, and yeah, it's just like that's really it. It's like how you treat people. Like even you can be welcoming, and you can still say, hey, like it's kind of about delivery, right? Like you could be like more concerned, like Shannon. I think like let's talk about this. Do you think you're ready for this trip? Rather than like the gatekeeper of like you're not going or whatever. Like so, yeah, it's just kind of about how you present yourself. And I'm friends with Scott to this day. I love the guy, and we've had our conflicts in the past, but if I see him out at events and stuff, it's nothing but love, right? And a lot of times I think about that these events and these circumstances and these relationships have helped me to grow, maybe through hard times and easy times. And growth is not always easy, and sometimes like having things thrown in your face is like important too, right? For you to reflect on that. So, I'm not saying he was always wrong. There might have been some times where maybe I wasn't quite ready. But yeah, delivery and support and like how can we, and this is kind of like as a charge nurse, I think like, okay, how can I help my nurses like to succeed right now? Like, what do they need? Like, how can we like help everyone to grow and be at this, be at the level? But anyway, I do this. I just start talking.
No, that's perfect. So your music.
Uh, so booking, like, yeah, that's like, I mean, about like once a week at least. I'm trying to like balance like less nursing hours and a little more music. I mean, I can't give up nursing like that that does support like my family and our lifestyle of like things that we like to do. um and it's job security. Whereas music, so I want to like kind of find the balance with that because you know getting paid to do music is also fortunate, but it's also work, and I like last summer I was going kind of hard on it. And part of it's like, okay, nursing takes me away from my family for 12 hours. It's a 12-hour day, right? Whereas music's only going to take me away from for the evening or whatever time my gig is for the setup, etc. But and then I've also gone through transitions with like who's my bandmates. I currently have a really solid duet. My lead guitarist is brilliant, like extremely talented, really amazing, and we have good chemistry and we put on a good show. And then we're a full band, a four piece. So I have kind of a newer drummer and bass guitarist that I'm working with, and so now we're kind of like we've got like we play like 3 hours gigs, hour and a half, depending on what people are asking for. So we're kind of just like my friends like, hey, music is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And that kind of made a lot of sense to me. Like, maybe play less low quality shows and more high quality shows. Meaning just like it takes time to get tight as a band with your intro and your outro and like, like your structure, and then running sound for yourself is like I've never been to sound engineering school. I have my own PA system, so that's you could sound good, but do you sound good? So like running your own sound is tricky. But I am currently again starting to up book so that it's like at least one gig a week. And I'm working on some marketing material. Goes back to marketing. Still need to put in the time so that like I can present to different venues and have a few more like spots around town here to play because it's really fun. I love playing. I love performing. Um, and I play some solo gigs. Usually like a small like art gallery or winery or like something very basic. That's I don't know how good those are, but I much prefer the duet or the full band. It's got more energy. So yeah, trying to play more music.
And it's Wild Ginger, right, on all the streaming platforms.
Yeah, Wild Ginger music. And I have a wildgingermusic.com. It's not up right now, but like I said, like next week I've got a date and appointment to get some recording and kind of refurbish my web page because my band did. I was like a six-piece band with a old friend of mine, and he had to step away for family obligations and stuff. And so like I've hit a transition, so now I kind of need to refresh like what's on the web page. So yeah, I need to get that going. But right now I just posted on Instagram for like the local events that we're doing and where we're going to be playing. So yeah, but I need to get that more up and running again. Yeah, it comes back to just like, I mean, all the like putting together reels and edits and stuff like that's time consuming, especially yeah, if you're not, and then like trying to like film live, it's like it's really important where the camera is, not for how you look, but for how you sound, right? You don't want it right in front of the speaker. It's got to be like a balanced sound. And I'm very critical of live recordings. I definitely think that like the live show is better than anything, just because I think I bring a lot of energy to the stage and sort of like being in the performing mode versus just like, oh, let's take a listen. But anyway, yeah, it's fun. I have a knack for memorizing lyrics and chords, which is I don't use any like phone or iPod or lyrics in front of me. So
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining. That was an incredible journey through the old golden years. You were right there in the heart of it.
yep, yep. I'm still thinking I'm going to be sitting here reminiscing all sorts for a while now. Girls are going to be home in a minute. But yeah, thinking of the boys and the girls are probably out there on East Korea right now. And I remember first ascending the gosh, what do we even call that one? Um, that first canyon. Taylor Robinson's got that one.
And we lost the very end of the audio here, but we never did figure out what the name of that second gorge is that Shannon first descended on the Tule, but the Tule is one of those just gorgeous California slides and waterfalls, slots. So you can imagine. Yeah, and then we just said bye. So thank you so much for Shannon for coming on. What a pleasure. See y'all next time.